doing up there, crazy?
My friends, it's a beautiful day. I'm out here in 45-degree weather with just a sweater on. Celsius, that's 8. I just looked. I still don't know these things, but at least I have a reference point. Everything's gone dormant. It is December 21st. It is the solstice. It was at 11 a.m. my time. I'm Eastern Standard. And, yeah, this is about as dormant as it gets because we have had a couple of pretty heavy snows. We just have no stable temperature in this part of the world anymore. Did you know that our good old friend, the Gulf Stream, has gone unstable? And that is why it can be 60 on a Wednesday and negative 10. This is Fahrenheit numbers I'm talking about. And negative 10 by that Saturday anymore. The Gulf Stream is just bringing North Carolina up to visit and then bringing Canada down to visit. That is what's going on. I have a couple of jars here that ended up with ice in them, and I'm trying to get them to melt at least enough to get the ice out and take them in and wash them. So you can tell how recently, oh, I gotta get those taken care of in there too. A couple of pots as well. Yeah, so you can tell how recently it was absolutely frigid. I brought home a couple of pieces of leftover, so y'all know Edible Acres. Edible Acres does a whole lot of repurposing of rural items. That word is hard to say. Rural, country. And I do a lot of repurposing of city refuse because I have direct access to a dock, and I am up in a city, like city proper, on the daily for work, and both of these things are for work. And when dock trash shows up, I assess it for, can I use it? Does this make me a hoarder? Maybe. I'm not arguing. But it also makes a lot of these things a lot cheaper. For example, these are old shelves, and I kept the rest of the old shelves. I'm gonna build a shelf in my living room, but they were just getting thrown for scrap. And now they're trellises for hopness, Apios americana, and polystachys bean. Yeah, a couple of native plants there. And, you know, stuff like these are also cutouts over here from a 3D printer down there. And I'm thinking to use that as trellising instead of all this, but a lot of the shorter pieces of EFT were in the trash. Yeah, so I'm continually using city trash and upcycling it and finding ways to put it to good use. One of the things I'm about to do with these pieces of clear paneling is mount them as quail guards that I can see through. That way I can move this little friend back a bit. And I also want to get these panels on the outside eventually, so that the quail aren't trying to get up in between this panel, and that they feel real secure, but they're the most exposed as they possibly could be when they're in that space between the fence and this. But they're very, very persistent, and it has lost me a lot of quail. So I keep hoping that I can find a way. Yeah. So I've also been upcycling. Instead of using the yogurt tubs for label makers, I have been using them as plant pots lately. And I'm reusing my own clay to try and line my pond here. It also gives me access, because we're a city that cares about native plants, to a whole lot of seeds out of rain gardens and such that the city has planted. I mean, at least right now, none of this is a mosquito risk, but that's some pretty serious ice, you know? It gives me access to a lot of things. Even a whole bunch of cobblestone. That's from here, but like when we dig up the old roads, that's what's underneath. I have been buying fence, though. I have not been getting that freely. And this is reused from my bench when it started to break. So this is the garden in the wintertime. I am still getting a good amount of kale from this hardy kale from Experimental Farm Network, the seed from them. I didn't end up with any red ones sprouting. Or maybe I did. That looks red in there, but it's tiny. So, yeah, there's a lot doing around here. I do leave a lot of my garden to just clean itself up. Obviously, I never ended up harvesting my sorghum. At this point, it might reseed. Kind of hoping that it will. I don't know if it got ripe enough that it will. I need to weed this out, though, because that's not a plant I want ever. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's an undesirable to me. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here. Elderberry. Woo! I doinked you. I'm sorry, friend. Oh, that part's dead anyway. Okay, cool. I still need to get in and dig up my sunchokes here. I got a couple of jars that are big enough to ferment them in and then also vinegar them in. Double ferment and then long-term spiced vinegar soak. And I tell you what, I loved the sweet spices better. I will do cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, and fennel seed as a mixture for the sunchokes, definitely again, and maybe skip the spicy one entirely because that was so good. Hoping that my hardy variety, because this is a non-hardy variety, but it should self-freeze seed of ground cherry, but there is a hardy variety that's probably gone dormant, and there's a hardy, well, actually, hey, Wild Edibles, what do you do to make sure your beets get through the winter? Because I'm hoping those will overwinter. Here's some charred things that should overwinter, or at least self-freeze seed. And that's my method of gardening, is just like, hey, seeds are a thing, let's let them do that, right? You know, like that. Very rambling tour of the mechanisms behind my garden. I have to do more trenching soon. Really don't want the cleavers. I know, they're edible. They're not very good though. To me. Maybe you love them. Cool. Tell me your recipes. Yeah. So, this is a whole trench. It's about 2 foot deep of wood chips right here, going the whole way down and making a turn. And it's the overflow for the pond, but I do want a secondary overflow. I've kind of second thought it and thought maybe this low point here would be a better point, but it needs to go over to the trench that's under the pots there. And that'll add even more water to the elderberries, which love it. They're gonna be so happy. They're gonna be so happy. But I do want to say thank you so much for visiting the cliffside. I don't need to ramble forever. Sometime soon, now that everything's dormant, we can get actually down the cliff on one of these warm days. I'll show you around again. It's easier to see when everything's dormant. This is prime earthworks time, just so you know. If you're not sure when to do your earthworks, it's when it's warm but everything's dormant. That's when to do it. So thank you so much for visiting the cliffside. This has been Permaculture. Take care. Bye.